Emma Collins hurried through the crowded streets of Manhattan, the crisp autumn air brushing against her cheeks as she clutched her briefcase tightly in one hand and a steaming cup of coffee in the other. Her mind was already racing ahead, thinking about meetings, deadlines, and the endless to-do lists that seemed to multiply with every passing hour. Despite the city's constant chaos, the blaring horns of taxis, the chatter of pedestrians, the occasional street musician trying to draw attention, her focus was entirely inward, her thoughts consumed by the day ahead. She moved quickly, weaving through the throngs of people, barely noticing those around her except when it became necessary to avoid a collision. Yet in that frantic rush, a sudden bump made her stumble, and coffee spilled onto the coat of a man walking past her. She froze for a moment, her heart pounding as she looked up to see the man's reaction. His expression was one of surprise, a mixture of shock and mild amusement, and before she could fully react, words tumbled out of her mouth in a hurried apology. "I'm so sorry, I wasn't paying attention," she exclaimed, fumbling for napkins in her bag and trying to blot the small stains she had accidentally left behind. There was a nervous tension in her voice, a mixture of embarrassment and genuine concern for the stranger she had collided with. The man's initial surprise softened into a small, awkward smile, and he quickly reassured her. "No, it's fine, I wasn't watching either," he said calmly, brushing the coffee lightly off his coat. Emma noticed his eyes first, warm, expressive, and unexpectedly kind, followed by a gentle curve of a smile that somehow eased her own panic. The moment felt surreal. She was accustomed to the anonymity of New York streets, where collisions often passed unnoticed and apologies went unheard. Yet here, with this brief interaction, there was a sense of connection she hadn't anticipated. For a moment, Emma's worries about her presentation, the missed umbrella, and the looming deadlines faded. She found herself laughing nervously as they both attempted to move past the minor accident, an odd sense of relief settling over her. The man's calm demeanor contrasted sharply with her flustered state, and somehow that contrast created a subtle sense of balance in the chaos of her morning. She instinctively felt a strange curiosity about him, wondering who he was, what his day held, and how it was that this random, fleeting moment had captured her attention so completely. "I can buy you a new coffee to make up for it," he offered, extending a few bills toward her. Emma hesitated, momentarily surprised by his generosity, before nodding with a tentative smile. "All right, just one," she replied, feeling a mix of curiosity, amusement, and something she couldn't quite name. They walked together toward a nearby cafe, the hum of the city around them fading slightly as they entered the warm, inviting space. Inside, the air smelled of roasted coffee beans, baked goods, and a faint hint of vanilla. It was a small pocket of calm amidst the ever-moving streets outside. Their conversation began cautiously, light topics at first, the weather, the busy streets, small complaints about the morning rush, but slowly it deepened. They found themselves laughing over trivial observations, sharing tiny personal anecdotes, and exchanging thoughts about the city they both navigated daily. Emma realized that she was not only enjoying the interaction but also feeling an unusual sense of ease and openness that she rarely experienced with strangers. Michael, on the other hand, found himself drawn into her presence, noting the subtle expressions on her face, the way her eyes lit up when she laughed, and the genuine warmth in her voice. Minutes passed, then hours could have passed in their conversation, but the world outside seemed to recede, leaving only the two of them in a bubble of connection. Text messages, phone calls, and casual greetings that had filled previous mornings were replaced by this rare, tangible interaction, alive and unscripted. By the time they parted, numbers had been exchanged, and there was a quiet, unspoken acknowledgement that something significant had begun. Emma walked back into the streets, coffee now safely in hand, but her thoughts were occupied not by work or errands, but by the man she had just met. Michael, standing in the doorway of the cafe, felt a similar pull, a spark of curiosity and interest that had been ignited by a momentary collision in the heart of Manhattan. As Emma continued her hurried path to the office, she caught herself smiling unexpectedly, replaying the brief interaction, the nervous smiles, and the shared laughter. Something about that morning had pierced through her routine in a way she had never anticipated, leaving a subtle but persistent sense of anticipation and wonder. For Michael, the image of Emma lingered, a gentle reminder that even the most ordinary moments could unexpectedly shift the course of a day, or perhaps, the course of a life. That single, accidental meeting had opened the door to possibilities neither of them had yet begun to imagine, setting in motion a story that would quietly and steadily unfold between them. In the weeks that followed their unexpected encounter, Emma and Michael found themselves thinking about each other far more often than either had anticipated. What had begun as a brief, accidental collision on a busy Manhattan street slowly unfolded into a connection that felt surprisingly natural and comforting. Casual greetings and chance meetings on the streets evolved into intentional coffee dates, and messages that were once short and hurried turned into long, meaningful conversations late into the night. They began to share aspects of their lives that they had rarely revealed to anyone else, from childhood memories and past ambitions to hopes for the future and small daily joys. Music, in particular, became a recurring bridge between them, as both confessed a fondness for jazz records, vinyl collections, and the little-known local bands that neither usually mentioned to others. Over time, Emma and Michael discovered layers of compatibility that went far beyond simple shared interests. Their values, outlooks on life, and the way they approached challenges seemed to align in ways that neither had expected. Sunday runs in Central Park became a ritual, during which they not only exercised but also shared stories, confided in one another, and laughed at the absurdities of the city life around them. Even the small moments, the way a squirrel darted across the path, a street performer's awkward tune, the smell of fresh coffee from a passing cafe, became markers of their growing bond, remembered and discussed with delight. The ease of their conversations was remarkable. They could speak for hours without running out of things to say, each topic flowing naturally into the next. Emma found herself sharing worries and insecurities she usually kept hidden, while Michael listened attentively, offering thoughtful insights or simply letting her words hang in the air, safe and unjudged. He, in turn, shared parts of himself that he had seldom voiced to anyone else, moments of doubt, moments of triumph, and the quiet reflections of a life often spent observing rather than participating. Through these exchanges, they both began to feel a depth of understanding that went far beyond mere attraction. Their interactions were punctuated by small, shared routines that slowly became meaningful. Traditions, texts in the morning to wish each other a good day, brief phone calls during lunch breaks, recommendations for books, movies, and music, all of these small acts stitched together a quiet but steady rhythm of connection. Emma noticed herself thinking about Michael even when they were apart, wondering how he might respond to certain events, imagining what he might say, or picturing his reaction to the simplest of daily occurrences. Michael, too, felt a similar pull, replaying moments in his mind, remembering her expressions, the cadence of her laughter, and the subtle ways she expressed herself. One afternoon, Michael suggested visiting a rooftop in Brooklyn, a casual idea that carried more significance than he initially let on. The rooftop offered a quiet space away from the noise of the city, with a view of the skyline stretching into the distance, lights beginning to twinkle as the sun began to set. As they walked together, he spoke softly about the neighborhood, the history of the buildings, and his imagined stories for the people who had lived there. Emma listened intently, asking questions, adding her own observations, and feeling a quiet thrill at the way he perceived the world. It was in these moments, in the midst of ordinary city life elevated by quiet attention and mutual curiosity, that their connection deepened in ways neither could have anticipated. They began to realize that their feelings were growing beyond casual companionship. The trust, comfort, and joy they felt in each other's presence created a sense of intimacy that neither had experienced with anyone else. Each shared experience, whether a casual walk, a conversation about childhood, or a small act of kindness, reinforced the bond that was quietly but steadily forming. Their lives, previously occupied with routine and obligations, began to intersect in meaningful ways, each day layering new memories, new moments of connection, and new reasons to value one another's presence. By the end of these weeks, it was clear to both Emma and Michael that what had begun as a fleeting encounter had transformed into something far more significant. They had discovered in each other a partner, a confidant, and a source of unexpected joy. Their relationship, nurtured slowly through conversation, shared experiences, and small but thoughtful gestures, had grown into a steady, genuine connection that promised the possibility of a deeper, enduring love. Even amidst the bustle of the city, the chaos of daily life, and the unpredictability of their schedules, they had found in each other a sense of calm, comfort, and companionship that neither had anticipated but both welcomed wholeheartedly.